Hi there, I'm John from CNCKing.com, and today we make a custom UV printer jig. The jig you see here is actually for a UV printer, though it could be used for basically any other machine or process you might have in your shop or your home or your business. In this case here, it's used for a UV printer. So what they do is they put the cards on here, the UV printer does the work, then they take the cards off. The nice thing about a jig is that it's repeatable, meaning that if you only have like 2 or 3 cards, you don't really need a jig. You just set it up on the 00 and go ahead and do your printing, in this case here. But if you have, a couple thousand to do, something like this will save you a tremendous amount of time and make the whole process sort of brain dead, which is what you need. I've done huge production runs here in the shop, and by using jigs, I don't have to think about placement. I don't have to think about a whole bunch of stuff that could go wrong, because once you have this here, you put it on your 00, which is the origin. Let's say it's over here. You always have repeatability. Now, if you were doing this manually by hand, again, a couple of units, not a big deal. But when you start getting to big production runs, this is not just a time saver, but a mental saver. Now, in this specific case, we're using acrylic, and it's wonderful for this process because of the color that you can get out of it. But let's say you wanted this to be incredibly durable for something that gets really hot and you put it in an oven. Well, then we make this out of stainless steel or mild steel, what have you. So you have a lot of options. And the options also extend to the layers. In this case here, it's just 2 layers, 1 layer in the back, 1 layer on the front. But if you need something that's 3 or 4 or 5 layers, we can do that just as easily here in the shop for you. So the jig can be more and more precise depending on the application at hand that you have for it. Now, when it comes to your color combinations, we could use basically any color combination you want. In this case, again, it's acrylic, but this could have just as been easily stainless steel, mild steel, MDF. If you want solid maple jigs, we can make that just as easily. The material that it's made from can be anything. The cutouts that we do can literally be anything. So you have complete flexibility. And again, the size can be anything. You could have this thing, 7 feet across and 4 feet down, or whatever kind of sizing or spec that you might need, we can do it here in the shop using any material you can think of. Something to keep in mind is jig placement. You don't want the jig so squished with stuff on it. So I know for UV printing, if it goes over an empty space, it's wasted time on your machine, not necessarily wasted ink. But when it comes to actually making a jig that won't warp or have issues during your UV printing process, you still need to leave enough material so the jig itself is structurally sound. I get some files from customers sometimes, and there's less than a 1/16 of an inch between all these different components, and it just doesn't work, because one, it can be damaged during production, or here in the shop, or during the glue up process. There's very little area to glue or bond the 2 layers, in this case here, together, or it's just going to break in shipping, or it's going to break at their end. Because it's not necessarily the owner of the company who paid for this jig who's going to be using the jig. It might be dropped on the floor or whatever. So you want to leave a lot of support material all around it to give it a lot of structural strength. Now, of course, you can have different components across the jig. So one section is golf balls, one section's credit cards, or what have you. That's not a problem at all. But just make sure you leave some room all the way around the different components and between the different holes that we make for this specific jig. Now, something else I want you to notice is the contrast. That's something to keep in mind when you have custom jigs made. The contrast is a really nice feature because it means that if you forget a spot, you know right away. Now, of course, the contrast depends on what you're putting into here. In this case here, it'd probably be white business cards, the ones that you go through probably like for doors. And what this happens to be is red and black. So it's neither of those the colors of what will be put into here. And you know immediately that you forgot to put one here, or you took it out, or what have you. So again, making the whole process mentally unchallenging is a great way to run a business if you have a lot of jigs involved. So how do you go about making a jig like this? The first thing you do is contact us, send us your files. We'll send you a digital proof, and from that, we'll cut it out depending on the material that you have, or that you want us to use, or that we have in hand, and we'll ship it right to your door. So the process is very seamless. It's very straightforward. We're just cutting the files you send to us, and that's what we use. That's what you get at your place of business.